What you, not your face, what you're doing, right?
I kind of like toggle between, like if I'm just talking, my face.
Okay, that'll work.
Yeah, that's good. Right there, you can see both.
Yeah.
Okay. Looks like we have some folks joining us. Hello.
Hey, everybody.
We're going to wait a few minutes for folks to join and then we'll get started. But thanks so much for joining us today.
I had to. Yes.
Like it on the porch is this big and wide.
Really? You're right.
I thought it
Wouldn't work on A-line. Yeah, so we ordered. So finally, last time my cousin was.
Right, but you got in.
Okay. I'm sure we'll have a few more folks join us, but in respect for everyone's time, I want to go ahead and get started. Thanks so much to everyone for joining us today. I hope you're all safe and well. My name is Lindsay Pilak, and I'm one of the staff at Keep Growing Detroit, and this is Nicolette Barnes, and she's going to be our presenter today.
Hi, everybody.
Before Nicolette gets started, I want to just tell you a little bit about Keep Growing Detroit for those of you who are not familiar with us. It's so good to see the names of some of the attendees here who are some of our members of the Garden Resource Program and early childcare providers that we work with. So hello to you all out there. But for those of you who are not as familiar with Keep Growing Detroit, we are a nonprofit organization in the city of Detroit. And we work with residents across the city towards our mission of food sovereignty. So we describe food sovereignty as Detroiters not only having access to food, but also being those who grow and have control over the food system that we're trying to create. So we're looking to that Detroiters not only grow, but also are responsible for the outcomes of a healthier food system for all of us. So the way that we do that is by supporting residents through our largest program, the Garden Resource Program, to have access to seeds and vegetable transplants. This year, we have nearly 1,800 gardens and farms that participate in the Garden Resource Program. And if you are a resident in the city and you're interested in joining, you can go to our website, keepgrowingdetroit.org, and you can sign up for the Garden Resource Program, seeds and vegetable, to receive seeds and vegetable transplants. It also includes in those 1,800 gardens about 50 early childcare providers, whether home daycares, Head Start centers, or other centers, private centers. And so with our early childhood work at Keep Growing Detroit, we want to make sure that early childhood providers have the resources that they need to successfully grow with young children at their gardens. And we know that looks a lot different. So we have a lot of different support that we provide, primarily Nicolette here, but working with providers so that they have the resources and support they need to incorporate garden-based learning at their centers. So before Nick starts, I just want to point out a few other resources that we have. In addition to the webinar that we're doing today, every Saturday we have a class on some gardening topic that's held on Zoom, and you can look at those topics on our website. We also have every Wednesday on our social media platform a short snippet about a different gardening topic. So be sure to check those out. And if you've missed them, we do have recordings on our website. And then for our early childhood work, we also have a lot of different resources that will still be very applicable if you're trying to incorporate garden-based learning with the families that you serve or with your own children. So we have basic garden plans. We have lesson plans, activities that we have correlated to the high scope curriculum. And we also have a number of teacher trainings that we've done in the past, and they are through Michigan Registry that we can work with to support if you are a provider and you want to do a training with your staff. That's something that we can do, and just a lot of different ways that we can help you to grow with your children at your centers, which hopefully will be all opening again soon. But until then, we hope that we can still support you to get gardening this spring. And so before we get started, I'm going to do a quick poll, and there's 2 questions. Do you have a garden at home or at school? And number 2, have you taken your children into the garden to plant veggies? So if everyone could just go ahead and answer those 2 questions. Okay, so it looks like everyone has done their poll. So for gardening, so it looks like about 40% of our participants are gardening at home, and about 38 are at home and 63 are at school. And then have you taken your children into the garden? 38% yes, and 63% no. So with that, Nicolette is going to make sure that you have the support you need to do all of the above. A little housekeeping: if you have questions, you can go ahead and use the chat, and I can answer questions as they come on, or let Nicolette know if they are relevant to the whole audience. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. Go ahead, Nick.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us, taking time. I know that there are a bunch of other things you could be doing, so I appreciate you being here with me. I am at my house on my porch because it's raining. I want to be in the garden, but you know, this whole time in life is about just like pivoting. So here I am with everything that I need. A few things I want to let you know is that I do live on the street where some folks are outside, so if you hear voices in the background, just know that my neighbors are talking to each other. Hopefully it won't be too much of a distraction. And if you do have questions about something that I'm going over, go ahead and put that in the chat. I will take like periodic breaks and check in to see if you have any questions that I can go ahead and answer. So with that, we're gonna get started. So this is basic gardening with a early childhood sort of focus. So there may be a lot of information that you already know, especially if you've already seen one of our basic gardening webinars, or you're just familiar with gardening. There are a couple of years. There are going to be some things you already know about, but this is really like trying to focus on how you can get your young children involved with as many steps in garden planning to execution as possible. So you'll also see me looking down. I'm looking down at my notes just to make sure that I stay on track. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. So when we are thinking about getting in the garden, we want to begin the planning process. We want to really think through what we want to grow, where we want to grow, how will we grow it. So whether you're at home or you're at a school site, you want to make sure that you scope out an area that has a good amount of sun. You want to go for an area that has at least 8 hours of sun, because most plants need at least 8 hours of sun. And so to me, the best way to do it is to, at different points of the day, go stand outside and see where the sun is the highest. And that's the best way that you can really figure out what area has sun. A lot of times you want to put the garden in a place that's aesthetically pleasing, and that may not actually be the best place where our fruit and vegetables are going to grow. So finding the place where you want to garden is best. A good example of that is right here on my porch. I have 2 hooks coming down for hanging planters, and I was like, oh, these hanging planters are going to be so cute. And then the first thing that I planted just never came up, because these hanging planters get no sun. So I had to take them down, because even though it's cute, it's not actually it's not in a place that's beneficial for my seeds to sprout or develop. So that's the same thing in your garden. You want to make sure that you're planting somewhere that has nice full sun. And there are some things that can grow in a little bit of shade. There are like some lettuces and then like dark leafy greens, but for the most part, your plants are gonna need some sun. You also want to think about what you want to grow, and if you have like garden plans from the previous year, you can consult those garden plans. If you have kind of like a loose memory from what you did before, what worked and what didn't work, it would be good to go back, think about that, revisit that, maybe even jot down some notes. But if we're diving into child-led garden planning, then there are some other strategies that we can definitely take. So one thing is you can have them draw the things that they want to grow. If they can remember what was planted before, if you have children that had things in the garden before, you can have them draw what they liked, what they thought was pretty, what they wanted to taste. You could use like a circular from the grocery store that has pictures of fruits and vegetables, and you can have them circle what they want to try, and then make sure that as they're doing that, you're explaining like seasonality to them. So like, they might want to grow an orange, or they might want to grow a lemon, but oranges and lemons are not really something that we grow in this area. So just make sure that like whatever it is they're circling, you're guiding them and letting them know like, okay, you might want to draw orange, but we can actually grow cucumbers right now. We can grow tomatoes. So just giving them education on what grows right now. You can also use a book if you have like a garden book. This is reading the alphabet. So you can go through, and as you're reading the book, you can have them point out what they're interested in, what tastes good, what they want to try. That's a good way to engage them. Another way is if you have sometimes you have like play veggies. So laying out the veggies and letting them go through and point to what they want to taste, what things they want to make, what things they want to see in the garden is a good way to also kind of let them lead the planning process, if you will. So there are a lot of different ways you can do that. And even if you're like taking a trip to the grocery store, you can ask them like, what do you want to grow at home, and let them go through the produce section and kind of point out what they're interested in. So once you kind of figure out what it is you want to grow, you can look through, like if you have seeds from last year, you want to look through those seeds and see what's still viable, what worked, what didn't work. And then you want to go ahead and start sourcing your materials. So I'm going to show you how we prepare a container for planting. This is going to be a little bit different from a garden bed. So you can grow in a couple different places. Right now, a lot of people are trying out containers just because of the whole COVID-19 crisis. Folks weren't able to get soil tests, so they weren't able to like grow directly into their soil. So you have a lot of people that are growing in containers and growing in raised beds. And those are always good alternatives if you're unsure about the quality of your soil, you don't want to grow directly in your soil, or containers, especially if you have limited space, or you're just kind of you're not working with a lot of space, but you want to grow some things. My entire garden is, well, I'm expanding this year, but for the past few years, my entire garden has been a front yard garden. That's a container garden. So at the end of this, I'll show you what you can do with a little bit of space by showing you my garden. But for these purposes, I'm going to show you how you would prepare a container. So I already have some compost and some potting soil, but the biggest thing to think about when you're sourcing materials is when you're doing containers, you don't want to do compost and topsoil. You want to do compost and potting soil. The soil is just going to be a little bit lighter and a little bit airier, and it's just going to work better to support your plants, especially because the soil mixture in containers tends to dry out. So you just want to use a lighter medium. So in this bag, I have some compost. So I'm just gonna put half compost in here and then half like potting soil. This is a sunshine mix. I took it from our farm. This is not very easy to find, but this is sunshine mix, and it's like a planting mix. But they have plenty of them at places like Lowe's and Home Depot. I got some from Home Depot this year. It's a blue and yellow striped bag. I don't know how it's gonna do with my plants yet, so I'm not endorsing it. But you just want to get I prefer to get like an organic potting mix as opposed to just any kind of potting mix. But you want to get a potting mix, and you can look on the bag. It'll say like for vegetables, for raised beds. It'll let you know like what the potting mix is for. So you want to get something that's for raised beds, for containers, or for vegetable plants. So I'm just going to pour half of this. And then I'm gonna take, and as you can see, this is much easier to pick up because potting mix is really light. That's probably good. And so this is one of the steps in garden planning that's really good that kids can jump into. So you can use really any kind of container to have kids scoop. So if you're at home and you were trying to mix compost with potting mix, then you could have your child take this. You can have them, scoop the compost, scoop the mix into here, and then dump it into whatever container it is you're using. And it doesn't have to be like something like this. This is just something I got from the dollar store. But it could be like a bowl that you don't mind discarding. anything that they can use to scoop, you can go ahead and let them scoop. And then we're going to mix this up. So these are just our like little kitty garden tools. And we got these from Target, but you can find these at like the dollar store or Family Dollar or anywhere really that has like garden supplies kind of have these. They're really cute and they're pretty cheap, and it kind of just gets them in the mind that like they're a gardener too. So when we're mixing, you can either with their hands let them go ahead and mix the compost and the topsoil together. I heard a big So some people would do this with a shovel, but I think that because this container is so small, it's better to either hand mix it or do it with a trowel. I guess it's really whatever works for you. What works for me is by hand. And this is the job you can get them in, so you can let them mix it with their hand. That's going to be really nice for sensory purposes. It's going to really let them dig their fingers in the soil, which a lot of people will say is healing. Or you can let them use their little shovel and sort of mix the soil up as they see fit. And so that's kind of where we are with that. And then I will come back to that when we get to like how we're going to prepare our pizza. So the next thing that you want to think about sourcing is your tools. So again, you can get these things from like, I got this from the Dollar Tree. I got this from the Dollar Tree. So there are a lot of tool banks around Detroit that will let you borrow tools, bring them back. I'm not sure if they are open yet. I will have to look into that information. Lindsay, if you know
So
that.
our tool banks are currently not open, but we're hoping that may change soon. But currently they're closed. So
Okay. So but just like your basic hand tools, which is pretty much all you need for a weed. Uh-oh. Are we frozen again? Are we back?
Yep.
Okay. You just kind of need hand tools. And so you want to make sure you have a trowel. Your other kind of tools you might need, shovel, a rake if you're using, again, if you're doing a raised bed or a bigger surface area. You want to figure out what your water source is going to be. So whether you're going to use the hose from the side of your house, or if you're going to if you have a rain barrel. Some really simple rain catchment ideas are if you have a clean like tote that you might use for packing things, like a plastic one, you can set that out like in the back of or near wherever you're gardening. Like I put it in my backyard where it's like open. You can collect water that way. At my parents' house, they have a lot of little totes that are sitting around that are collecting water. And that's just a way to reduce your water bill. So those are like some water catchment ideas. Again, people do rain barrels. People also just use their hose. If you have like a smaller garden and you don't have a whole lot to water, then watering from the sink is okay too. But you want to also think about what are you going to transport your water in. So you have like your standard just watering cans. I think I got this for like $3 from like Family Dollar or something like that. We have ones that are specifically for little ones. And investing in something like this, which is not going to be more than $2 or $3, is also going to and it's also going to signal to your child that like they're an active part of the garden, like they are a gardener too. But you don't even need this. If you don't have this, you don't need it. You can use a plain water bottle. You can use a smaller water bottle if you have like, this was just like a gallon of water, but I have like a juice jug that I've used before. And then you just like stab it all around. You make little holes in it, and then just around like this area through the top of it. And then when you fill it up with water and then you shake it, then there you go. You have your very own watering can. And if you want to get really creative with it, you can rip this part off, and you can have your babies paint it. They can paint flowers or whatever it is they want to paint on it. And that way it becomes like their water bottle, and you get like an art project, and you get utility out of the same thing. So once you figured out where you're going to water, how you're going to water, then you can always create like a visual watering schedule. So you can make a big poster board if you have poster board laying around that has like the days, and then you can have like people's name next to it. You can denote what days you need to water or who watered using stickers. If you have stickers, you can put a sticker by the person's name on the day that they water. That's sort of like a good job, you took care of the garden today. But that will help your kids to realize that these plants are living. It's something that they have to take care of. You know, it's a constant process. It's not just we put the plants in and then that's it. And it's also a way to give them like some acknowledgement and some praise. So we already kind of started talking about bed preparation, but if you had a raised bed, you would want to make sure, and a raised bed, just for those who may not know, is a wooden box that you you drop it into the ground, and then you want to cover the bottom of that box with, some people use weave fabric, but something really simple that oftentimes people have is cardboard. So you could layer the bottom with cardboard. Specifically, you want to layer the edges because you don't want the grass to grow up through the bottom of the raised bed. And then after you've done that, then you fill that with soil. And then you fill that with soil and compost, half and half, and then you want to go ahead and plant. You don't need to use potting mix in a raised bed, just regular soil. And as a granite, you can get it, and compost will do the job. So if you have a raised bed, then you want to make sure that you're creating like as flat as possible of a seed bed. So when you're pouring your compost in there or your soil, oftentimes at the top you'll have, because compost is organic matter, it's not going to be all one smooth material, so you'll have chunks. A good thing that kids can do, and this will help with their fine motor skills, is you can have them crush up the chunks. So you can have them take the large chunks of soil and crush them up with their fingers to break them down. And then you can also have them, again, mix the soil and the compost together, or mix the potting soil and the compost together, and then create a smooth bed with their hands. And one thing that we want to remember is that the natural world has like an infinite amount of lessons that we can learn. So as your kids are putting their fingers and hands in the soil, they might see worms, they might see roly-polies, they might see a spider. It's good to encourage them to interact with them, not to be scared of them, because the more insects and things, especially like worms and roly-polies and spiders that you see in your soil, that indicates that your soil is pretty healthy. And so that's a good sign. So a sensory activity you can do is, if they see a worm, encourage them to pick it up, to feel it. You can ask them to use whatever descriptor words they have to describe, how it feels. So, maybe a worm feels slimy or wet, maybe a roly-poly feels prickly. So just ask them how they feel about how the bugs feel in their hand, how the soil feels, and really let them interact with what's going on around. And I'm gonna pause here because I realized I didn't pause earlier. Does anybody have any questions for me?
There was just one question about growing in an apartment, but I addressed that one.
Okay. So if your kids have a small wagon at home, another thing that they do, and this will really help with their gross motor skills, is you can have them, whatever supplies you may have for them at home, like if you have, your watering container, or you have your tools, or you have, a scoop for them, you can have them load those things into their wagon and then, pull the wagon from place to place to be able to help you. That way, they are moving their arms, they're moving their legs, they're, using a little bit of weight, they're practicing that coordination. And so after the bed is prepped, then we want to get directly, then we're ready to plant. So I'm gonna demonstrate how to do some herbs, some tomatoes, and also some seeds here. So in a raised bed, you want to space plants at least, especially plants that are going to be pretty big, like tomatoes. You want to space them at least a trowel's width apart. So it's easier to do in a raised bed because you have more space to use. But you want to, let's say this is the edge, you want to go from, your trowel goes from here to here, and then your trowel goes from here to here in this direction. And so that's how you'll know where you plant and then where you put your plant. And then you'll make sure that you use not the width, but the length of the trowel to space out where your next plant is going to be. That's just a handy way to kind of figure out how far apart things should be. You can encourage your little ones to use the trowel. They can hold the trowel down as a way to measure as well. And counting always comes into play, because you can have them count really any and everything. You can have them count how many plants are in the 4-pack. When you're getting ready to put seeds in, they can count how many seeds are in your hand. They can count how many seeds they've dropped into the soil. And then once you're done planting, they can count how many plants are in a container. So that's how we kind of incorporate. And before I do that, so this is Amish paste. Amish paste is essentially aroma tomato. This is my favorite kind of tomato, just FYI. So when we're handling transplants, it's best if we refer to them as baby plants, because a child is not going to necessarily know what a transplant is, but they understand the word baby. They probably interacted with the baby. They might have a baby at home. And so it's good to kind of teach them about the gentleness that you need by kind of stimulating, this is the baby plant. This is what we would do with the baby. So you can always, I would always recommend to take the transplant out of the pack for them. So we squeeze it from the bottom, and then we want to cup it in our hand. So this is the part where they can be really as active as you want them to be. So these are roots, and these roots are kind of wound up. So the first thing you can let them know is that we're going to massage the roots of our baby plant to loosen them. And so just let them take a chance with squeezing. You can even let them hold it in their hand and squeeze with the other hand. And we want to let them know that, you know, we never want to hold, just like we wouldn't hold like our baby cousin by its neck. We don't hold the plant by its neck. We hold it just like a baby by its body, pretty secure. And so the next thing that we're going to do is you're going to let them make the spot where the plant's going to go in. So transplant doesn't need to go any further into the soil than as like long as it is. So that's how we'll know how deep it goes. We don't like bury it. We just set it just deep enough that we can go ahead and place the soil around it. And then we don't want to, one thing that I've noticed small children will do is they have a tendency to go like this. They want to like press it in really hard. But what you want to do is you want to encourage them to press the soil around the plant and then just kind of like let it go. You can come behind them and you can press it down a little bit to make sure that it stays in place. Or if they have enough coordination where they can put their hands together and make like a diamond around it, or not a diamond, but a triangle around it, then you can let them do this part, but you just want to make sure that they're pretty tender with it. And then that's how we plant our transplants. So the biggest thing is you don't want them to like make a mound around the plant, because the plant needs to be able to breathe. We just want to put it just beneath the surface and then press it down just a little bit so that it's secure. So one thing about tomatoes is that they're pretty they're pretty complementary if you plant them with basil, and this is called companion planting. So tomatoes like basil and basil like tomatoes, and because basil is smaller, then you can go ahead and fit a little bit of it around your plant. So it's the same thing with your basil transplant. You just want to be pretty careful with it, and these are babies, so you want to be really, really careful because they're still growing. And in this container, I will put not more than like 2 basil plants in here. So you want to give it some space. You don't want to put it right up on the tomato. You want to give it some space away from the tomato. Again, you want to let your baby make the space that's just wide enough to drop your basil plant in. You want to go ahead and push the soil right around your plant and then just lightly press it in. And then I'm going to stop here and see, does anyone have questions? Nothing? Did you go?
Like it.
Okay.
Oh, hold on.
Yes.
Ashley, did you have a question? Oh, hold on. Sorry. Oh, Ashley, did you have a question?
No, I was just saying that the chat, you can't write anything, disabled.
Oh, okay. but you said something? You wrote something? Okay, I'll look into it. Oh, okay.
I was just
I
saying.
think it should be fixed now.
Okay.
You want to try? Okay, Nick, go ahead. I think I fixed
Okay.
it.
All right.
Thank you.
So this is kind of, how you would plant in a container. And the biggest thing about, if you're definitely going to be planting in containers, is spacing. I mean, that's the biggest thing really with planting, period, is you never want to overcrowd. If you overcrowd especially with plants like tomatoes, because they need space to be able to get big, to be able to grow. If you have too many plants in a small space, then the plants are going to fight for nutrients and they're going to be stressed out. Then some of them may die, some of them may not get as big as you want them to get, some of them may not bear as many fruit as you want. So just keep that in mind. In this container, I might put like one more basil plant in here. Or I would maybe even put an oregano plant in here, and then that's it. I wouldn't put more than one tomato in this container. This would definitely just be enough. And there was something else that I was gonna make. Oh, okay. So when we're ready to plant seeds, and I guess I'm gonna use, I guess just for demonstration purposes, I wouldn't plant seeds over here with the tomatoes and the basil, but I'm gonna use the same container just as demonstrating. So if we were gonna plant seeds, one job that you can go ahead and let your little ones do that's also gonna help with their fine motor skills is I would let them like dig the trench for the seeds. So they can do that using their trowel. They can do that using their mini trowel. If you don't have that and you have a popsicle stick, they can dig a trench with a popsicle stick or just like a regular stick that you find around. Whatever it is you find, they can even do that with their fingers. So you want to let them make a trench for your seeds, and the depth of the trench is really going to depend on what it says on your seed packet. A good rule of thumb is that the smaller the seed, the more shallow the trench should be. For some seeds that are really, really small, like dill or beets are really small, then arugula seeds are really small. Sometimes I don't even dig a trench. I just take my finger and make a visible line that I can see, and then drop the seeds, and then I'll add some more compost right over the top. I won't even make it deep hole, because a big mistake that I've made. Can you hear? Are you still able to hear, or is that too loud?
We can hear you.
Okay. A big mistake that I've made is that I have dug the trench too deep and then wonder why my seeds never came up, or my especially like my herbs never came up, or why it took them like 4 weeks to come up. So you just want to read the instructions on the back of your seed. All seed packs will tell you how deep to plant and then how far apart your rows should be. So so just for demonstration purposes, I'm gonna show you a shelling pea. So shelling peas really should be planted more in early spring, but the weather has been crazy. It was snowing like 3 weeks ago, right? So this is where we are. So these are seeds that are big enough that they can, if you spread them out in your hand, especially like just a couple of them, then you can count these seeds together. But the biggest thing is that you want your little ones, you want them to pinch. So you want to encourage them to use their fingers to pinch. So after they've, let's see, so these are going to be. So 1 inch, so 1 feet every 3 inches, 1 inch deep. So we sort of use the first segment of our finger as like a rough estimate for what an inch is. So we would make our trench as deep as our finger will go through, and then you would pour the peas or the seeds into your hand. You would hold them into your hand because this movement and formation of the hand in a small child might not be that developed. A lot of times too, when you pour seeds into kids' hands, their impulse, for whatever reason, is to go like this and just like throw them off. I've seen this happen so many times before. It's really funny. So it's good if you hold the seeds and then you let them pinch the seeds from your hand. And so you'll have them drop it, and then you can kind of space it for them. You want to space it every 3 inches. So like, this is about 3 inches. They'll drop it. They'll drop it. The biggest thing to remember is like, if they don't plan it perfectly, it's okay, because, you know, half of it is just the experience and the exposure and the fact that they're learning. Like, if they just go like this, if they pinch 5 and throw them, that's okay too. You can always go behind and pick them out, or you can just leave them if you want to leave them. Like, it's fine. And then after you put your peas in the trench, then you can have them take their fingers and just kind of like gather the soil together, just like that, to close up the trench. And there you go. You have planted peas. And just remember that with smaller seeds, it's going to be harder for them. So it's more likely that the seeds are going to blow around, that they may sprinkle them everywhere, that they may get everywhere, and that is perfectly fine. So after you've planted, then here's the part that I think is most fun, is watering. Oh, I actually don't have water. But if I have water, then you go ahead and you let them water. You want to remember that your plants need a bath and not a shower. So kids have a tendency is they just want to hit the leaves, but make sure that they're going around and getting all of the soil in the container, and especially around the plants. But we don't want to make puddles. So I always tell them, we'll give a bath, not a shower, but no puddles. So you want enough soil that it's gonna soak through, but you don't want to have big puddles of water. That means that you've overwatered your plants. And it might be a good idea if your soil is really dry, the soil or the compost that you're working with is really dry. You can even like water the soil ahead of time, and that's another good job that you can have them do, is to water the soil ahead of time. But they are gonna want to water, so just be prepared. And even if you don't have like your homemade watering can and you just have a regular watering can, you can always hold it with you. A lot of times I hold it and then I let them grab it wherever they want to grab it, and then just do it together. And then you can put the sticker on their watering schedule to mark that they watered that day. So these are hot crops. These seeds are not necessarily hot crops. These seeds are more spring crops. But these are hot crops, meaning that they're going to get full sun. So you want to, in the height of the summer, these are going to need to be watered possibly twice a day. It's better to water at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, so that the soil can absorb as much moisture as possible, because if you water in the middle of the day when it's really hot, then all that water is going to I'm blanking on the word for whatever reason.
Evaporate.
But there we go. All the water is going to evaporate from the soil even quicker. So if you can, you want to get out there early in the morning, and you want to check the weather to make sure that you're not watering on a day where it's going to rain a lot. that's important as well, because you don't want to be overwatering your plants and then it rains and then your plants end up rotting, not making it, or you kind of have like problems with like, fungus in your soil. Right now, it's been raining a lot, so it's really good to check the weather because that's also going to save you a trip. Another big thing about maintenance, because now we're into maintenance, is just looking at your plants every day, looking at them to see what the progress is. Are they getting bigger? This is a good way to incorporate your child because you can have them pick like their favorite plant, and you can let them draw from week to week what the plant looks like, and they may have the ability to see when it gets bigger or smaller, or they may not. They might just draw the same plant every week, but it's still good to have them continuously look at it and see if they can kind of like if they can notice the differences. Are the leaves getting brighter? Are they getting greener? Is it getting taller? You can have them take their finger and kind of measure it, and if the plant gets really big, then they can put their arm against the plant and see like, now it's as tall as my arm. Just like as many ways as you can to engage them, like physically and actively in the growing process. That's good. Weeding is probably one of the best ways to engage their fine motor skills because again, they have to pinch to be able to pull weeds. So just having them, like when they see plants, when they see things that are not like the main plant that you planted, so like a tomato plant, for instance, the little weeds that will grow around a tomato plant will be pretty obvious because they don't look like that. So just having them use their finger to dig in the soil right around the weed and pull it out. That's a really good job for kids, and they get really excited, especially if you like every weed that they pull, you really encourage them and tell them that they're doing a good job. And then the other thing too that they can do for maintenance when it comes to tomatoes is they can help with staking. So tomatoes will need to be staked. Things like tomatoes, cucumbers, even eggplants will need to be staked or trellised, which just means that they need to be supported. Like when a tomato begins to bear its fruit, it gets heavy and it leans over. And so staking it is how we support it. I'm trying to see what I can simulate as a way to stake it. One second, there's a stick behind me. All right. So you can actually use like branches, stick that you find in the garden. You can also use like wooden stakes. They have tomato cages too, are something that you may see in the store. It's like a long cage that you can put around the tomato, and if the tomato grows up, it will kind of weave around the cage. But oftentimes with cages, you still need a stake. So essentially, you will, once your plant is getting big and it's looking like it's hanging and it needs support, you take the stake and you set it behind. And you can do this really, a lot of times people stake right as they put their tomatoes in. They put the stakes right in. You can do that as well. But if you don't have them yet, that's okay. You can wait till they get big. And so you put the stake in, and you can have your child hold the tomato, hold the plant to the stake with their hands or their fingers. And then you would take some string and just tie these two together. Now you don't want to do it like so tight that you're kind of like cutting off the circulation to the plant. You want to give the plant a little bit of room so that it can keep growing and moving upward, but you definitely want to have it tight enough so that as the plant, or secure enough so that as the plant grows, it can use the stake as support. And that's something that kids can do. They can hold the stake and the plant for you with their hands while you tie.
Nicolette,
When yes.
you have a question. So the garden at my school grew a lot of weeds around the bed. Me and the kids picked them
Okay.
out, but they grew right back. Is there any unharmful spray or technique to use?
Well, it's gonna depend on what kind of weed it is and how you picked it out. If you just, so when you're weeding, if you just pulled the weed just like off of the surface, but you didn't go underneath the surface and pull the root out, then the weed is gonna come back. If it's a vine weeds just like spread, so you kind of have to like stay on them. I guess it just depends on what the weed is. I don't have a spray that I can recommend that's gonna not be harmful. It just kind of depends on what the weed was.
Can I add one thing, Nick?
Yes,
Another
yes,
thing
please.
is that if you do have weeds that are pretty aggressive, sometimes the most important thing is to get the weed out of the bed before it flowers and produces seeds. So staying on top of weeds that are about to flower so that they don't reseed can also be important.
Yeah. Maybe looking around the corners of the bed to see where the weeds are coming from and seeing if you can pull them from out the ground. Will be my best. Best.
So the weed that she had, it sounds like maybe it was maybe a thistle, so it was spiky. So one thing about thistle is that you, like Nicolette was saying, you do have to get the roots out, and you can use gloves, but also if you go down to the base of the plant, a lot of times it's not as pokey down there. But thistle is a really aggressive weed that you really have to just stay on top of. But I would agree with Nick that there's not really a great way other than pulling them. One thing you want to think about is at the beginning of your garden season, before you plant your plants, making sure that any pieces of those weeds are pulled out. So as you're prepping your bed, to try and get out all the pieces before you even plant. And that might help a little bit.
Okay, so any other questions on weeding, maintenance?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. And then finally, when you're ready to harvest, another thing you can have the kids do is, again, harvesting is a great way to practice those fingers and hands moving. So grabbing the tomato, pulling, turning, pulling. So just making sure that they're a part of the harvesting process as well, teaching them how to properly harvest. The biggest thing is that you want to teach kids, especially for things that are pruning, like tomatoes, eggplant, peppers, that they don't want to pull the whole plant up. You just want to pull off the fruit that's ready to be eaten. And when it comes to your herbs like basil or oregano, cutting the leaves off but leaving the plant is also important, especially like a plant like basil. Kids typically, they just have the urge, they want to pull the whole thing, like, oh, now it's time to eat it, and just letting them know that, we can, showing them how to like snap the leaf off, but leave the plant in place. Or if you have like little kitty scissors at home, you can let them practice with cutting the leaves off the stem, but leaving the plant in place. And that's it for the maintenance portion of it. Does anybody have any other questions before I go into, I just have one other activity that I want to let you all know you can do in the garden.
There's one more question. How do you keep away squirrels and birds?
Oh, I get this question every time that I do. And my honest answer is that you really can't. You can try, but squirrels are aggressive. So there are a couple different things people do. You can put like things that are distracting, like you can put like owl type of things in that will kind of scare the squirrels per se. People leave like people have tried the method where they'll take like a rag and dip it in like vinegar and place those around the garden because that's supposed to be unpleasant to squirrels. They don't like that, so they won't necessarily. That's supposed to just be a deterrent. People use like, is it deer urine that they use to sprinkle around? But
there's a million products out there.
yeah, but the reality is, if I'm just telling you from my years of experience, the best thing you can do is just plant enough so that the squirrels get some, then you'll still have some left. I'm just being honest. That's the best thing to do because, and kind of like squirrels have patterns and they have things they like. I learned last year that my squirrels, they are going to take a bite out of a few of my tomatoes. They are not going to decimate the majority of my tomatoes, but there are some tomatoes that I'm going to harvest and it's just going to have a little bite in it. So I've learned that I'm just going to have to grow enough tomatoes so that if I have to sacrifice 10 tomatoes, it probably wasn't more than 10. If I have to sacrifice 10 tomatoes on the season because they want to take a bite, okay. I also learned that they like colorful things. So last year they picked off almost all of my habanero peppers. They took a bite and then they left it on my porch. They did that to almost every pepper that came up. So what am I going to do this year? I'm just going to plant 3 habanero plants so that hopefully, they'll go to one plant, they'll figure out they don't like it, and then they'll leave the other plant. But with squirrels, you kind of just have to like watch them, see what they want. One thing I will say is squirrels don't bother my greens. Like they don't want my lettuce, they don't want my collard, they don't want that kind of stuff. They kind of want like what they can like. I think what they think they can store away or what might be like appealing. To me, here they like colorful things, but they don't. But honestly, I haven't had like the biggest issue. I think people in their mind, the issue is bigger with squirrels than it really is. Honestly, like I don't see that they're just gonna take the majority of your stuff. They're gonna figure out what they like, what they don't like. Lindsay, I don't know. Do you have anything?
No, I think you summed it up. I just want to give you a time check. It is 3, so.
Okay. All right. So
final thoughts. Just respect people's time.
The other thing the last activity I want to talk to you about is an activity we call Rainbow Scavenger Hunt. I thought I had brought them down. I didn't bring them down. But if you go in any hardware store that has paint, you can grab the paint swatches for free. You can grab as many as you want. And if you get paint swatches that mirror like the natural colors of the flowers or the things that are growing in your garden, then that's like a fun activity, especially once you're in the height of the season and you have things growing. You can hand the child a swatch and then have them go and look for the color that they found. So like if you got 2 tomatoes growing, you have tomatoes. If you have them red, if you have like a dark purple, if you have a dark purple card, then they can go and find the egg. If you have flowers, you have yellow flowers, you have tulips, just think about the next time you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, think about what colors you have growing in the garden, what colors you might have, what colors your grandmother has, your aunt, you have at school. Grab those swatches and then, and then that right there is a game. And it's just color recognition. And if you don't have things growing yet, but you have, for instance, like clay vegetables, you can do the same thing. You can spread these out or put them in the bin, hand them the swatch, and then they can go and match it with the color of the vegetable. And Oh, and then we have the last activity is we have something called Follow That Nose. So if you have things growing in your garden like basil, like oregano, like dill that are really fragrant, then you can have the kids sniff their way through the garden. So go around, smell this, and ask them, what does it smell like? What have you eaten that might smell like this? So a lot of times kids are able to match dill to pickles, or sometimes they can match oregano to spaghetti. They know like that spaghetti might taste like that. So just whatever you might have that's growing, that's fragrant, let them smell their way through the garden and kind of like see if they can identify some smell. And that's it for the activities. Do we have any other questions? Anything you want to add, Lindsay?
It doesn't look like we have any other questions. I just want to point out that the activities that Nicolette just mentioned are some that we have written in lesson plan format, which would still be relevant whether you're in your classroom or at home with the kids. We're planning to do another webinar probably in June that's growing with young children, focused on some of those lessons. So we'll be sure to let you know when those trainings are coming up. And then next week Wednesday, we have a webinar, a Facebook Live session that's also tips for engaging children in the garden that Nick will be teaching. So if you want to join us for that, that will be on Facebook as well as recorded on Instagram. And
it's a lot of the same things, but it'll just be very, very condensed.
Yep. And for all of you providers or parents out there, again, to say we really want to support you in your efforts to engage your children at home this season with growing a garden. So if you are interested in joining the Garden Resource Program, we would love to help you connect with seeds and plants for your children. And we also have a distribution in July. If you're not quite ready yet, we'll have seeds and plants that we give out in July as well. So please reach out and let us know how we can support you in your efforts to support your children during this challenging time. And we appreciate you all joining us. So thanks so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great day.
And also, I'll be sending an email to all attendees with some of the lessons and the garden plans that we talked about.
Okay.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.